Good morning, Annabelle and Sergio. Just wanted to do a quick video for you. I know it's kind of tough coordinating our schedules right now. So this video here, I'm going to go over the offer that we submitted, as well as what happens after an acceptance. We did this on the second day of the workshop, which I don't know if you were able to attend or not, but either way, I'm going to do a quick overview of it. Okay. So we submitted our offer at 486. If they accept our offer, which we should hear back, we put an expiration for tomorrow at 12 o'clock. What that means is the offer expires at 12 tomorrow, unless we decide we want to extend it. But that's to put a little bit of pressure on the listing agent and the seller in hopes that they don't have any other offers for them to at least make a decision or respond to us because they take the chance of us finding other properties and looking at other homes, which we actually have scheduled for Thursday. So to be real quick, if an offer is accepted, say they accept our offer, day 0 would be the day of acceptance. The second that they deliver that to us, they're bound by contract and that seller is locked into the contract. Meaning if they get another higher offer hours later and they try to say, hey, we changed our mind, we want to go with that higher offer, they can't do it. They're bound to ours. So the very first goal that we have is to try to lock them up into escrow with us, so that we now have the control of moving forward through the transaction. We wrote a 30-day escrow period. So what that means, and I'm going to try to highlight here if I can find the button on here. I know I've done it before, but let's see. Here we go. Spotlight. Okay. So if you look, day 0's acceptance, 30-day escrow here on the share screen. Okay. This is your timeline. So after your acceptance, you would have 3 days after acceptance. So today is Wednesday. They technically accepted today, today would be day 0. Thursday would be day 1, Friday would be day 2, and Saturday would be day 3. Well, escrow isn't open on Saturday. So we would actually get, if it ends on the weekend or a holiday, we'd get all the way until the Monday, 11:59 to submit that earnest money deposit. Well, Monday is a holiday. So what that means is we actually have till Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. to submit the earnest money. Well, now escrow is typically open till about 5 o'clock. So what that would mean is even if they accepted today, tomorrow, or Friday, or even I guess as late as Friday, Friday would be day 0, 1, 2, either way, no matter whether they accept it from today or till Friday, your earnest money deposit isn't going to be due till Tuesday. Okay. The earnest money deposit is a good faith deposit. And what we wrote into the offer was $10,000. 10 is still strong and that money does clear. So you want to make sure that you can pay your bills, that you have the money available. If you have it in stocks and you need to transfer it, these are things we want to talk to Jason about, right? To make sure it's seasoned and it's coming from the right account. It can't come from a safe that's all cash and then try to submit that in. So just little things that we want to talk about in terms of the earnest money deposit. Again, that's why we did the home buyer workshop that gets in a lot of details. But as you see on this timeline over here, I wrote it down. Day 0, confirmation of acceptance. Day 3, you have 3 days to deposit the earnest money deposit into escrow. You can either write a personal check and drop it off there, which we'll find out once the terms are finalized. I wrote in All Valley Escrow. And you could either drop it into their physical office or wire the money in and they give you escrow instructions. Day 7, seller has 7 days to deliver the disclosures to the buyer. So what that means is after acceptance, seller has 7 days to get us all the necessary disclosures. So let's keep it real simple. 2 main duties here. Buyer's duty is to investigate, right? To discover everything they can find out about the property. And we typically have 17 days to do all of our investigations. We have 21 days to remove all of our contingencies, all of our ways out of the contract. To keep it simple again, buyer's duty to investigate, seller's duty to disclose. Seller has a duty to disclose all material facts about the property. The agents also have a duty to disclose. When you hired me to represent you in submitting this offer, I have a fiduciary duty to look out for your financial best interest. What that means is, just like I would look out for my family or for anybody else for that matter that I represent, but especially, you know, if it were my own mother or my kids, I want to make sure that I'm protecting their financial best interest. Well, I'm held to a higher standard than the average person because I am a professional in real estate. I'm getting paid a commission, not from you, but from the seller. And to keep it fair so that I'm not working for the seller and that I'm working for you, I have these duties, and it's in the disclosure regarding agency relationship, which I'm going to go through those forms really quickly. I do have somebody is picking me up in about 5 minutes, so I'm going to at least start this now, go do the brief overview, and then we can go into more detail later if you still have some questions. But the disclosure regarding agency relationship is the very first page that we sign, and it's to make any offer valid. And what it says is, as a buyer's agent, that I have that I practice diligent exercise of reasonable skill and care and performance of the agent's duties. I also have a duty of honest and fair dealing in good faith. Number 3, I have a duty to disclose all facts known to the agent materially affecting the value or desirability of the property that are not known to or within the diligent attention and observation of the parties. An agent is not obligated to reveal to either party any confidential information obtained from the other party that does not involve the affirmative duties set forth above. And what that means is that basically I can still protect confidentiality rights, just like when I represent you and you share with me, say you tell me, hey, we're willing to go to 5, but we want to offer 486, then, and I will ask you, okay, do you want me to keep that in confidence, which it's obvious that you would, that's why you shared that with me. And I have a fiduciary duty to protect your financial best interests, to try to save you every dollar and every penny. I have a duty to protect those interests, right? To get you the best opportunity possible. So just want to be very clear about that, because that's probably one of the most important things that doesn't get discussed in the formation of a agency relationship when you pick your agent and hire your agent, okay? So after acceptance, 3 days to get earnest money, 7 days for disclosures, 17 days to do all of our inspections. Now we're going to try to schedule our home inspection and our appraisal right out the gate. We want to do that as early as possible. Home inspection is roughly going to be, as you see, out of pocket, about $350 to $450 based on the size of the property, whether it's a townhouse versus a single family dwelling, right? And it's based on the size. But typically you're expecting about $400 that you're going to spend for a home inspection. Appraisal is going to range between $450 and $650 depending on whether you have to rush it. Well, we may have to rush it if we were in a multiple offer situation and they shorten our time periods, because right now the boilerplate of the contract gives us 17 days to do our appraisal, which it can take about a week and sometimes a little longer with this whole COVID-19. And the good news is my last one happened right away. So, and that was about a month ago. And literally within 24 hours, they were able to schedule it. And then as soon as they did the inspection, we got the report right back, and we didn't pay for a rush, which was awesome. But typically, let's just say what's common is, say you get all your paperwork into Jason. He tells you, okay, I need your credit card information so I can order the appraisal. The appraiser doesn't work for Jason, the loan officer. They're a third party that's supposed to be private that the lender hires, that's an outside source, because they don't want any influence by the lender, and they don't want any influence by the agent, myself or the listing agent. This is something you pay for, and it's a protection for you. So that appraiser will go out there, check out the property, look at everything, and being FHA, if they see peeling paint, if they see any type of electrical hanging in the attic, if they see anything that they want to call out that doesn't meet FHA guidelines, basically making the property habitable, they're going to call it out and say it's required as a repair. So one common thing is sometimes sellers won't have carbon monoxide detectors or smoke detectors installed. And if that's the case, it's going to get called out as a mandatory repair. The appraiser has to come back out and re-inspect. Usually they charge an additional $100 for that. So I always want to make clear with the other side, hey, you got that or the smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector installed, water heater strapped and braced. And they said yes, okay? So that's the very first thing. We want to do that at home inspection right out the gate. That gives us plenty of time to get our report. Once we get the report, we will have a discussion. We can do a Zoom call and discuss the home inspection report and go through what the findings are, and then put together a request for repairs. Now the seller, all they have to do by law is the water heater, smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector. In the city of Ventura, they also have the sewer lateral inspection. So they have to do that, and I wrote that into the contract. I actually put inspection and clearance done by the seller. So if they say yes to it, if they find $2,000 in damage or $4,000 in damage, seller's responsible to take care of that. So I wrote that in to protect you on this offer, being that we don't have, to my knowledge, any other offers we're competing against at this time. So she did confirm that she received it and that she would be reviewing it and getting back to us. So that's the last text that I've received from her. I called her, left her a voicemail, And then I followed up with text, but she did confirm receipt of our offer. So after that, so 17 days, we got the appraisal, the request for repairs, the inspections, CC&Rs. And inspections is plural because once you do our home inspection, if we see that we need a plumber, an electrician, or a somebody to inspect the roof, then we could potentially have to hire additional inspections. Well, for this particular property, they have an HOA, which is going to cover quite a bit of the exterior. So we'll get those details through the transaction, but we'll also reach out to the HOA management company and find out, what do you cover, what don't you cover? They say they cover termite and roof, then it's not likely that we need to do a roof inspection. But if the home inspector saw something that was a red flag, a stain in the attic, something, because they're going to check in the attic, they're going to check in if there's crawl spaces, go there. They're going to try to test everything and see the things that we can't see. And if they don't, they'll say, hey, we recommend you hire a professional HVAC inspector. That's a heating and air conditioning inspector who specializes in that. Home inspectors kind of jack of all trades. And what they do is they're going to give you the initial, any red flags that they see. So that's why we want to do it up front, early in the timeline. So if we have to hire additional inspectors, we got plenty of time before our 17 or 21 days is up. Okay, very important concepts to understand. The 21 days is what we need for the loan contingency. We don't remove that. That's the final contingency. That's our last way out of the contract. So early on in the transaction, the reason why I say we have nothing to lose is we're trying to lock them up. And if we change our mind, or we do our home inspection and too many things come up and it's just like, it's too scary, this isn't what we want, we can back out of that transaction. And that earnest money I told you that's deposited into escrow, that $10,000, I can tell you that in 16 years, I've never lost anything in terms of the earnest money deposit for any of my clients. They've always received that back, or we've closed the transaction and then they put it, it can go towards your down payment, your actual cash to close. So if you need to come in with roughly $36,000, $37,000, that 10 is your first payment towards that 37. So now, depending if we're able to negotiate any repairs, any of that, maybe we get an additional couple thousand in repair request, right? And they give us, I wouldn't, I couldn't see it just by walking through the place when we first investigated it, being built in 2001, but things could come up. And say they said, yes, we'll give you a $2,000 credit here, right? Or whatever. Or they say, no, we don't give you any credit. But if they gave us a couple grand, then that also would be deducted off of the total cash to close to wrap the transaction up. So 3 weeks, 21 days to remove all contingencies. 25 I put on there. This is getting into the final week of closing. 5 days prior to the closing, say that they agreed to fix, which water heater they have to fix, right? But let's say there was a broken oven. And there was a hole in the bathroom that we didn't see the first time we went through, and we wanted them to patch that up. And then there was a plumbing leak in the sink of the master. And we said, okay, we want you to fix those 3 items. Well, when we do the final inspection, we want to make sure those repairs are completed. We've already removed all our contingencies, all of our ways out of the contract. So that means our earnest money is at that time at risk if for whatever reason we defaulted and couldn't close the transaction. That's the only time they could even have a claim to go after the earnest money deposit. But again, the only way that happens is if we agree in writing to hand them that full check, which we're not going to do, right? So if something happens that's completely out of our control and we find out, hey, you know what, we can't close this transaction, then we're going to fight for that earnest money deposit. And the way to do that is between either, first we would have a discussion with them. If we can't come to an agreement there, then we'd go to mediation and then arbitration, and an arbitration would make the final decision. Mediation, I actually did mediations while I was wrapping up law school, and I'm not an attorney, not giving any legal advice, but I do have experience in the mediation arena. And I was actually on the board of directors for the local nonprofit for mediation. So I mediated cases, small claims cases, real estate, landlord-tenant disputes, all that type of stuff, civil stuff, just a variety of things. What mediation is you have a mediator who facilitates a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. So say the earnest money, $10,000 at risk, right? That 10K is at risk. Something happens, say our hours get cut or something just, randomly happens and now we can't do the loan for whatever reason at the final hour. We're talking worst case scenario. And we removed all our ways out. We were days from closing and now we can't close the deal. We call the other side and say, hey, I'm so sorry, but we can't close, we can't perform this. And they say, well, we're going after that earnest money. And say, well, we'd rather you not. Let's make sure that we work this out. And, we got a pretty strong case here, and we would make the strongest case we could. Well, that mediation is just a facilitation, meaning that mediator's job isn't to make the decision. It's up to the buyer and seller to come to an agreement. So if they can't compromise any kind of agreement between the parties, then nobody agrees to it, and then you go to arbitration. Now, arbitration, an arbitrator would make an actual decision. And just so you know, in every single transaction I've closed, which I've successfully closed over 100 transactions, between buyers and sellers, not one time have I ever gone to mediation or arbitration. We've had, people balk at saying, hey, we're going to go after that earnest money deposit. And all it took was a pretty strong conversation coming from me with my background. And the other agent was able to convince their client to, hey, just kind of cool off here. Let's move on and get on with this, because there's things we can do to make things more difficult for them. And there's no need to talk about that right now, but just to give you the confidence that you're in great hands. I'm going to protect you through that process. So we don't have to get to it because we do our timelines up front. So that's just a brief overview. Once you get to day 19, day 20, or I'm sorry, day 30 is the close of escrow. That's recording. So it funds on day 29. And then on day 30, that's when we'll actually close and you'll get the keys to your new home. So that's just kind of a brief overview. I can go over each individual form if you'd like later today. When I get a little bit of time, I got a couple errands I need to run right now. Like I said, an appointment, actually, I just hear the guy who's supposed to show up just got here. So I got to get going, but hopefully that helps. And just in terms of the forms, it's disclosure regarding agency relationships. The first one, we talked about that. Next is possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. And that's a form that basically says that I could have more than one buyer or seller at a time in terms of clients, which I do have other clients that I also serve right now as well. But just know that I've basically handled, usually my max is about 6 to 7 at one time in terms of having active escrows going at the same time. And I guess to give you some peace of mind, currently I just wrapped up my last one about a month ago. So you're fine. I got plenty of time to make sure that I fully represent you and protect all your interests all the way through it. And I hope that you've seen that so far in our communication, up until this point. So then next form is the wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. This is a very important form. There's a lot of wire fraud that's happening right now. So if we open this transaction, basically be careful on emails and be careful on especially text messages. You'll never have an escrow officer text you to say, hey, send me your bank information, your wiring information. That's called wire fraud. So there's a lot of that's happening. So what we do to protect that is, one, if we can avoid wiring money, we avoid it, right? Just drop off a personal check. The second thing is you want to personally talk to the escrow officer and get the account number directly from them, give them your information, but they'll give you the account number when you go to your bank and get the wiring instructions. Once you verify it verbally, you know that you're speaking to exactly who you're supposed to wire. Remember, large amounts of money, they never text you, hey, send me your bank information, okay? So important disclosure there. Then it comes to the actual purchase agreement. So that's already 3-4 pages in. So you asked about 22 pages. They actually extended it to 16. It's supposed to be the new contract. It was 12, and it just keeps getting longer and longer. But the purchase agreement highlights everything that I went over in that timeline. And that's mostly found in paragraph 14B, where it talks about our timeframes and our disclosures, okay? First page of the contract of purchase agreement says price at $486. It's got your names. It's got the address. 30-day close of escrow. Then it shows the confirmation of agency relationships. Listing agent, broker, I should say, is Joe Cap. The agent's Bridget Goncalves. And then I'm with Veteran Home Services, and it says Raymond and Associates Incorporated. That's my wife and I. Yes. Your friend is. Okay, I'll be right out. Okay, just wrapping this up. Just shut the door real quick, bud. Sorry. So I do got to wrap it up. But basically, $10,000 earnest money deposit. You have $461.7 is the loan amount, $14,300 is the balance of your down payment, $486 is the total price. For NHD, we ask for First American NHD. That's a natural hazard disclosure that talks about whether you're by fault lines, those types of things. Again, this is another seller disclosure, costs them about $90 to do it. Then we also ask them to do a sewer lateral inspection, which usually runs $200-300. And then we're asking them to give us clearance, which, like I said, it's unknown. It could be nothing, could be a few $1,000s. We're asking for the sellers to do it. We're trying to pre-negotiate that. I didn't put termite. We can hire a termite inspector. I got a great guy. Usually runs about $75 for an inspection, and then they do their termite inspection. But as I mentioned, HOA may be covering that, so it may be a moot point for that as well. Title and escrow, to each their own, they pay their own respective fees. So as Jason has quoted your estimate, that includes title and escrow fees as well. He always puts in a rough estimate for that, okay? And I requested All Valley Escrow with Shannon Graham. I just got a great working relationship with her. Consumers Title is another reputable company that I work with. And then after that, we asked for the seller pay to county transfer fee, city transfer fee, HOA transfer fee, HOA docs. Those are all the big costs that we're asking the seller to pay for. And then also First American Home Warranty. I did Eagle Premier, which is the highest one we can ask for $480. It's an upgraded warranty. Asked for the stove, excluding the fridge and the washer and dryer, because that was per their request. And because we came so much under asking price. And then we said 3 p.m. for possession on the date of close of escrow. Usually they fund the day before, they record the next day, and then we hear about it about 1 to 3 o'clock, and then we would get the keys. If we didn't change that, we'd have to wait till 5 o'clock to get the keys. Other than that, mostly boilerplate language until it gets to 14 A and B, and that talks about your timeframes, which I just went over, your rights to cancel. The seller's right to cancel, the only way they can get out is if we breach one of our duties, our timelines, and we don't meet it. They give us a notice in writing for a notice of article form. We have 48 hours to then remedy that, so to remove that contingency, and we keep them locked in. If we don't do it, then they have one way out of the contract. Now, if they have a backup, they can cancel us and take the other. That's what I mean by you being in the driver's seat. Then it gets into liquidated damages being limited to that earnest money deposit. So the most they could try to sue you for is that $10,000. That's the most they can go after. And typically that would be if we breached our duties after removing contingencies. Then you have mediation and arbitration clauses, which I went over, expiration, which I already went over. And that's the end of the contract. You have buyer's inspection advisory, just again advising that we should do our due diligence, don't waive those inspection rights. Also do your due diligence in terms of verifying square footage, that type of thing. California Consumer Privacy Act is a new advisory that they want to make sure just in terms of your information being protected. And then finally, FHA VA mandatory clause. And that's one final protection that says if it doesn't appraise at 486, you have another way out of the contract. Another important clause. So that's it. That's all I have in terms of the contracts I'm going over. I hope this helps you. If you have any other questions, you have my phone number, 805-815-1327. And I hope that helps. I'll talk to you soon. Take care and good luck. And I'll keep you posted as soon as I hear back in terms of the response to our offer. Bye.